Okay. Okay, let's get going. So this was the lab that we were looking at yesterday, and the people who might have joined yesterday will know that we have looked into a couple of labs yesterday regarding NAT, and we have also discussed about how a security policy works and regarding how Palo Alto processes the packet. So now it's going to be another lab on how Palo Alto will be checking for few services and which interface it will be going through. So the config name we are going to see is service route, and we're going to see some steps on how we back up the config and how we export the config and how we load the config onto Panorama or Palo Alto. So let me pick up the IP. So to check other interfaces that Palo Alto possesses, it's going to be show interface all, which will give you the information about all other interfaces. To check what the management interface config is, it's going to be show interface management. So if we get here, we have 172.16.29, 156. Let me log into the firewall. So we're going to look into something called deploying Palo Alto from scratch and how a service route works. And we're going to see how do we do a config audit. So which is basically means how do you take a backup of Palo Alto config and how do you load it onto Palo Alto Panorama and get it working. Then we are going to look into some basics of Panorama and what it does and how it works. All right. So once you get a Palo Alto firewall, what you do exactly for any other devices, you will just make sure you get a management access of that device through a console. The similar way, you have something called management interface. You are going to connect management interface to a PC. So in this case, we have connected the management interface of Palo Alto onto the network that I am currently using for internet access, so that it gets an IP automatically through DHCP, and that's the reason I'm able to access the Palo Alto firewall directly onto my browser here. So to make life easier, I'm using it this way. The traditional way that you do is connect a management interface to a PC and configure a L3 network, let's say 192.168.1.1 for Palo Alto and 1.2 for the other end, PC, and then you can take HTTPS from the PC that you have configured or connected to the Palo Alto firewall. Once you have taken it, this is how the terminal will look like, and the username password by default would be admin and admin. And where you can witness what's the management IP of Palo Alto, it's over here. Under device setup interfaces, under management, you have the IP address. So in this case, this has been set as DHCP client, and by default, ping SSH and HTTPS. So to get a CLI access GUI and ping the interface is by default allowed on the Palo Alto firewall. So you don't have to do anything. I have not done anything here. It's by default allowed. So so that you can readily take access onto the firewall. This is how you take access to the firewall basically. The second thing I wanted to talk about is service route. What it basically means is, as a firewall, as a user, you come in from inside interface and reach somewhere outside. In the path, you have something called user identification. You have an AD server that is providing you your joining you to a domain and giving you a username and a domain name. Let's say you must have logged into your office network, and your AD and username could be ABC / your username, right? So to join your username to an AD account, you need AD server. And Palo Alto has a feature of integrating your AD server onto the firewall and providing the logs based on the user ID. So let's say several other services that are available on Palo Alto. By default, what service route does is it uses management interface for all the services. So what are all the services that we are going to consider is, let's say DNS, let's say email service, let's say we are having Radius, TechAx. For everything, it will consider the reachability should be through, or the route should be through management interface. But in this case, let's say we have a DMZ interface here, and you have an AD server connected to this interface L3 network, and for the firewall to reach the AD server to collect the user ID mapping, it has to go out to DMZ interface. Let's say it is Ethernet 1/3. So in this case, if the defaults are used on the Palo Alto firewall, it is going to consider management interface as the routable interface for the AD or TechAx or whatever. So wherever the server is located, you have to map that, or you have to route the traffic through that interface. Let's say in our case, I think we have Ethernet 1/1 and 1/2 already active. Let's say we have a Radius server. It's using management interface by default. I can change it to Ethernet 1/1. Let's say the AD server is behind this interface and behind this network. You can change it to this, and then you can make sure Radius is reachable to this interface. And necessary supporting routing configuration also should be available. Let's say static route or any routing that is supposed to be configured on the firewall has to be configured. But the main agenda is management interface is the default interface used for all the services that Palo Alto offers or connects to or tries to connect to. In our case, if it's a different interface, we are going to map that service to a interface which the server is reachable from. That's about service route. We'll get into config audit. So here we can look into a few things like backing up, config, exporting, that is again backing up, importing the config, saving the config to firewall, loading it. Loading it is again importing. So what all these different things means is, so whatever related to management or whatever related to whatever stuff that you do which is related to that specific firewall or its config, you do it under device. Let's say object, you create an object, you provide reachability through security policy for a user. That's done through objects and policies. Network configuration, interface configuration are done on the networks. Device is something which is specific to that firewall. So you go to device, setup, operations, and you have various options here where you see revert to last saved configuration. Let's say you have committed a config and you wanted to revert it to a last saved configuration, leave revert to running configuration. That's again the same thing here. Revert changes, you can do it through this one. Saving a name configuration snapshot. So this is something, let's say you take this and type in a name. Let's say backup 1. Click OK. So what this will do is, it will basically save the config onto the firewall itself. Loading the config is again, you have saved a config. You're going to load it onto the firewall to make that config effective. So let's drop down. You will have the config that you have saved and click OK. And once this is done, you will have to, it will ask you for a confirmation. Task manager for a status. Like you commit your changes, you will also have a job running on the firewall while the config is being loaded. So the load is complete. Here we don't have much of a config. We just have 2 to 3 configs available. So this config, once it's completed, you will be seeing something on the task manager that is completed here. Again, under export configuration, you are going to save the config onto your local machine where you are working. So wherever you have taken HTTPS of this firewall from, you are going to save the config onto your local machine. So let's say I'm going to take this backup I have taken, and it's going to save it as a file on my local machine. Import is again, you are actually saving the config back here, but you are not loading it. You are just copying a file let's say PA backup. You are browsing a file and copying it onto the firewall. You are uploading it onto the firewall, but you are not loading it. Loading it basically means you are making the config effective. All right. So once you commit the changes, I don't think you'll need to commit for this. So that's about it. So reverting the config, saving the config onto the firewall, loading the config for the firewall to take effect of the configuration, exporting it onto your local machine, importing the config on the firewall from your remote machine. So this is again few tasks that you can perform remotely. This is again a good thing that next generation firewalls are bringing in, wherein in Cisco devices, the only way you could power off a device is plugging out the power cable. Here you can reboot the device or shut down the device in case of any maintenance using this remote buttons, which will reboot or shut down the device, and you can go ahead and physically power it on once the maintenance is complete. So that's about the configuration management. We can also see stuff regarding how do we do how easy it is to do a software upgrade on a Palo Alto. So it's just 2 clicks away from upgrading from one version of Palo Alto to another. And of course, after the software is installed, you are supposed to reload the device. So reload is again a part of information that you need to know. So since this firewall, I'm using it through my lab, I will not be having the software information available in here due to license criteria. I will be showing you a Palo Alto documentation, which will let you know how easy it is to upgrade the firewall, and then we'll move on to Panorama introduction. So there's only 2 steps that you follow. You go to the firewall device section under software. That's where we are currently in. So over here, you just give check now. You will be having the recent versions updated. Under available, you will see an option to install the software. You just click on install. Once it is installed, it will show us install, and it will say it is currently in, first you have to download. First you have to download the software and then click on install. Once it is installed, currently installed will be having a tick mark, and then it will be asking for a reload. Once you OK, you will have to wait for the firewall to come back up after the reload, and your firewall is upgraded. So just 2 clicks away. So you go here to the device, software, download the software, check for the new updates, download the software, and install the software and reload. And there is one quick catch here. Why I actually spoke about this one is, let's say we are currently running Palo Alto version 9.x, and if you want to upgrade 9.x.x, so the procedure I told you will be sufficient. One reload is fine, and you can just very well directly go ahead and do it. But let's say you are in 9.x and you are going to upgrade to 10.x. So what's the difference here is, the first number you see here before the first decimal point is the base version. This is the secondary version or the child version. So when you're jumping from a base version 9 to base version 10, you are actually supposed to upgrade from 9.x, which you are currently in, to 10.0. So which is you are jumping from base version 9 to 10, base version 10, then you upgrade to 10.1.5 or whatever you wanted to upgrade. So which means for this process to happen, you need one reload, and for this you need one more reload. So basically you are going to do 2 upgrades. If you are going to jump directly from 9.x to 10.1.5, it is going to give you an error, and your firewall lose all its config, and there are great chances that you might not be able to recover, or you will find it hard to recover the firewall from that such a situation. So you have to be careful when you're jumping from base version. So that's an important point that I want you to know. Coming down, we are going to discuss on Panorama. So Panorama basically is something which is used for collectively managing multiple firewalls at ease. So basically, collectively managing, what I mean is collectively managing the configs, multiple PA firewall at ease. Let's say a scenario where you have to you have another PA here, a similar way connected to a router. This is a different location. And similarly, we have somewhere around 10 firewalls. So let's say you have a common rule where you have to allow certain applications for users to access internet. Without a panorama, what would you end up in doing is you will basically be configuring 10 rules, 10 same rules on 10 different firewalls, right? Let me try to change the color on. Okay, coming down. So I was talking about having the same set of rules on 10 different firewalls. If you don't have a panorama managed infrastructure, you will end up configuring 10 same rules on 10 different firewalls, which is going to use up a lot of your time and administrative overload. In this case, what you do is you create something called device groups for. So you have a firewall here where if you go to Panorama dashboard, which I'll be showing you later, policies and objects will be grouped as device groups. Network and device tab on Panorama will be called templates. So what do I mean by this is, device group is basically, by its name you can understand, grouping devices, grouping the firewalls which is under Panorama management, right? So what you do is you create something called global DG, global device group, and you just make sure you check for the indentation I'm using here. You create a global device group, and you create region-based device group, region A, and under that you have the actual firewall. For firewall A, and you have region B, you have a firewall called firewall B. Okay, this is US, region A, US, region B, APAC. So let's say global DG1, this is device group 1. You say this is device group 2 for region, device group 2 for second region, and this firewalls will come under device group 3. So what you do is when you check for the indentation here, this global device group is the master of all these. When you see, everything is actually under this global device group. So whatever you create under global device group, since the device group 2 region A, device group 2 region B, and under region A you have firewall A, and under region B you have firewall B, everything is under device group 1. If you create an object or you do whatever changes under device group 1, it's going to be available or inherited to other device groups. And if you go to the firewall and see under policies tab, under security, you will see that it will not be in blue color. I mean, it will not be in clear. It will not be in clear here, as you see. It will instead be in brown color, I mean highlighted in brown color, where it means that it is inherited from Panorama device group or template. So this makes our life very easy to make sure we don't use much of administrative overhead for just configuring one same rule on all 10 firewalls. It's not just for configuring a rule, it's for configuring anything under policies and objects when you consider device group. When you consider template,
sir, I have a question.
Yeah. Yes, I heard someone asking.
Could you please take us to the diagram tab?
Yeah.
So here, say for example, you have mentioned in the device group, you created global device group 1. Under that, you create device group 2 for region A and device group 2 for region B.
Yes.
So in that, the firewall name has the device group 3. So do we need to have it in sequential order, or we can have device group 2 firewall DGA US? Because since it is falling under DG, it is falling under device group 2. So why are we giving it device group 3? I mean, isn't it confusing?
So actually not. Let's say I'm talking about configuring a rule common for all the firewalls in all the regions, right? It's all up to your own customization on how your network is having. How you have your network built. So let's say you have 10 firewalls at 10 locations in region Asia, and you have 10 offices in region and 10 offices in region Europe and 10 in region US. So let's say you need to configure a similar policy for that specific region. And when you configure a region-based device group and configure the firewall device group under the region-based, you go and configure the rule on DG2 region A. It's going to get inherited on all the 10 firewalls here. So it is not going to actually disturb other region firewalls where it's not at all needed. So let's say, for example, region A is going to use one specific centralized DHCP or DNS server, and the reachability, as you know, should be given through policies and objects. I mean, you're going to create a security policy to give reachability or allow traffic from user subnet onto DNS or DHCP of the specific region. So let's say region A is using DNS A, and you have to give reachability for all the firewalls or all the users who are behind all these 10 offices in region A to the DNS server. You are going to have if you are having a separate device group for that specific region, it's always beneficial, because creating this rule in DG1 global, you are actually inheriting this rule not only for region A, you are also inheriting onto region B and C, which is not at all needed. Region B and C is going to use a different DNS server, and for that you need to have a different rule. I hope I'm clear, or do you still have any?
So this nomenclature could be anything, right? I mean, we don't really have to like keep it as device group 3 firewall A. We can keep it as device group 2 firewall.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It can be anything. As you said, it is based upon how your network is. So let's say you have your office is located only in one region. You just have a global device group and don't need a region-based device group. Just put everything onto global device group, and you can customize your configs. So it's about, let's say you have one centralized DNS server for all the regions. Even though you have 3 regions, you can just go ahead and configure a rule on global device group, and it's going to come up on to all the other firewalls. So it's about where you need the policies to be reflected or inherited. So if you need it to be only on specific region firewalls, having a device group for that specific region will be a beneficial one, right?
Okay, sir. So each region should have different device group, and the nomenclature for that particular device group could be anything.
Yeah, it can be anything. So it's just that it depends upon
it's
how
for
you
our
want
reference. It's like a host name, right?
Correct.
Okay, sir.
So it's basically going to inherit those rules what you configure there onto that device group which is present below that, and the firewall will have its own rule base that it follows in the rule order that it follows, which I'll be discussing later. So whatever I configure on Panorama, all those rules will be showing up here in a specific order, which I'll be covering up here in some time. That's about device groups. Similar way, you have
I
something
have a
called,
question as well.
yeah.
Sorry, Syed here. So, Azad, is the Panorama as a mandatory deployment for any Palo Alto implementation, or is it the Palo Alto can be standalone itself without the need of the management plane or whatever management device, which is Panorama?
Yeah, so as we saw yesterday, we had a standalone firewall, and even now we have a standalone firewall. It's completely fine to manage a standalone firewall. But what if the scenario which I gave is in your situation, like say 20 firewalls, you got to manage similar set of rules for all 20 firewalls. And if you're good to configure and spend time in configuring similar set of rules for all the firewalls manually by yourself, it's well and good. But
so is it only the
Panorama,
scaling? Is it only the scaling
it's only for
scalability?
scaling, it's only for management. It's only for ease of management. So it's just
Okay, so
ready
if I
for
have just one Palo firewall in our branch office or whatever, and if I want, I can keep it standalone, or if I want, I can keep it Palo Alto, or sorry, Panorama managed.
Okay,
But what
so
is the recommendation from Palo Alto itself? Do they recommend that the
they
branch
don't have
offices
any
or data
specific recommendation, but as I said, if you just have one firewall, let's say you have 20 offices, you have only one Palo Alto firewall sitting in one office, and all other locations are using ASA. Just for one firewall, it's meaningless to purchase a Palo Alto and get the license and make it working, because Palo Alto is basically for managing multiple firewalls, configuration of multiple firewalls. Because as I said, taking again the rule base as an example, you are going to configure similar set of rules on 10 firewalls or separately, or you're going to configure it on one Panorama device, which is going to get pushed to all the 10 firewalls at a time. So which is easier? It's obviously Panorama, right? If you have 10 or 20 firewalls that you are managing. So if it's just one firewall, it's meaningless to use Panorama.
Yeah, it's because you may have to pay the license and it's more expensive setup, right? Yeah.
Yeah, expensive, and it is not going to do any good for you, because one
Good
firewall
for you, yeah,
is
right.
again you're managing that one firewall through Panorama, or versus you are managing the firewall by logging into that specific firewall. Both are the same.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then so coming back to templates, the template is again for this network and device tab. I told you for what reasons we are using network tab and for what reasons we are using device tab. So let's say again, I spoke about policy, spoke with regards to policy when it comes to having one specific DNS server for specific region or DHCP server. What if we are supposed to use Palo Alto to point to a specific server? Let's say in this case, under device, we have something called attacks. We have something called radius, LDAP. So all these are profiles that you configure for Palo Alto to reach out to the specific server and get the information and provide it in the logs for us to identify which user. I mean, in case of LDAP, we get user ID mapping, and on the traffic logs, we see which user is actually initiating this traffic and using this URL or whatever. So in this case, templates will come into picture. Template, what it does is when you create a template and you configure the Palo Alto firewall or map the Palo Alto firewall onto it, it basically what it does is it's going to form a hierarchy. Let's say you form a stack of templates where you form a firewall template, and you form a you create a template for global, and you create a template for a region, let's say APAC, and template for the region AMR. So let's have it this way. So let's say you have 5 firewalls. So in this case, you are going to create a specific template for all the firewalls. Let's say 3 firewalls to make it short. So you're going to create a template for 1, 2, 3 firewalls, and you're going to create a global template, and you're going to create a template called APAC for AMR. So what you do is, when you are configuring something, you go to that specific template. You have an option. You will have an option to choose the template here. You will go to the specific template and configure the things that you want to configure, and the firewall config will be there in that specific template. But what happens here is, you are going to create a stack as well. Let's say you want a specific zone. Let's say if you have office setup, you will definitely have a corporate zone, definitely have an untrust zone to connect to internet. Others are depending upon your requirement, right? So you will definitely have an untrust zone on every office. You will definitely have a corporate zone on every office if you have a standard. So creating that zone in global template and inheriting it on the firewall template will save you time. So let's say you create only one zone called untrust in global template, and whenever you come back to interfaces and you wanted to map this to a specific zone, or you go to zone and you will have an option to inherit it onto the firewall template that you have configured for a specific firewall. So it's again basically mapping down the templates into a stack and configuring the specific parameter onto a specific template and inheriting it onto the firewall template whenever needed. Let's say we can give it an order as well. So let's say DLR firewall 1 and APAC global. This is the stack I have formed. I'm going to create a stack. After creating this specific templates, I will be creating a stack here. What the stack will do is, it will first see if there is any value for that specific interface, let's say interface or zone or any value. On this firewall template, it will see if there is any. Let's consider this interface or this zone. Let's say inside zone, or let's say outside zone. We have mapped it to Ethernet 1x2. So under firewall template, let's say we have configured a zone and mapped it to Ethernet 1x2. It will again come down and it will check it. Here you have configured the same interface, same address zone, 1x1. Here you have configured same address zone to 1x3. So let's say we have same zone configured with mapped with 3 different interfaces. Let's say, since this stack is in this order, firewall 1 template, APAC and global template, it will first give preference to the value that it has on firewall 1. If let's say this guy needs this value to be overridden, you can come down here and you can override this value and change the value that you want to have it here. So basically, the preference will be given to the top of the template stack. The least preference will be given to the global template stack, and you will be allowed to inherit that value onto the bottom level templates. Let's say you have created untrust zone, right? It will be really a little confusing, but if you try to understand the logic behind it, it is pretty simple. So let's say we have created a one zone untrust zone, And in this, at this time, the stack value that we have is global and firewall. So let's say we have configured untrust zone in this global template, but the firewall is will actually be mapped. Firewall serial number will actually be mapped in this template, right? The firewall, actual firewall template. So when you want to use this untrust zone here, you will be overriding the value of global template. You got my point?
No, but is the preference from top to bottom, or is it firewall versus the global?
It is top to bottom. It is top to bottom. So as I told you, untrust zone is something. If you take it as an example, all the office firewalls will have it to connect to internet as a common standard. If you have a standard as untrust, or if you have a standard name to be ISP interface, you will have whatever. You will have a standard where, let's say, the standard name here for the company is untrust zone. Untrust zone should be available for all the office firewalls. So if you're managing 20 firewalls and you have a global template and you configure that untrust zone here, and if you want zone to be used, obviously you want it to be used and you have to map it to a specific interface. In that case, you go to the firewall template, you know that there is a zone available in global template. You go to the firewall template, you go to global template, you go in there and you override the value and push that value or borrow that value to the firewall template. This is how it works. So basically, having it as a separate template and forming a stack, the difference is to actually use the template value of a higher priority globally available value onto the firewall value, which whenever needed. Am I clear? We'll be showing this to you in a brief for next 10 to 15 minutes. Just give me some time if I can take a few minutes to log into the device. I'll just clear this off for you. So do you have any confusion or any questions regarding the template and device? I'm sure you will be clear when I'm going to show you how do we configure it. But if you have anything before that, ask.
Yeah, I think so. When we do it practically, we'll have more insight. I think it's a bit confusing to me, but I'm not sure about others.
Okay. Okay, so this is how the panorama would look like before you configure anything onto it. So it just has a monitor tab. It just has a green monitor where it shows the same as the firewall, and it has a dashboard information, IP address and stuff. So coming down to Panorama tab, this is where we initially configure the Panorama or any Palo Alto device. So in this case, the most of the tabs are similar to the Palo Alto firewall. Let's say setup under management, you have some information regarding banner and host name and stuff. And under service, you have how do you enter and or how do you connect to update server of Palo Alto firewall. and the same thing that I showed you for backing up and rebooting the device and stuff, the interface, so everything is the same. So where we are supposed to be interested in is under managed devices. So this is where we configure the firewall with its serial number, which will be done later. It's just about adding the firewall serial number here and configuring the management IP of the Palo Alto firewall on the firewall, which we are going to add it here. So the serial number should come down here, and on the Palo Alto firewall, you will be configuring the Panorama IP address, and the reachability should be provided, obviously. Coming down to how do we configure a device group or a template. So I said if you configure device group, you will get to configure shared policies for policies and objects, shared configs for policies and objects. If you get to configure templates, it's for network and device, right? Right now we don't see anything regarding device policy or object or anything. So as soon as we start creating this, we'll come to know what happens. Let's say we create something called global DG. Okay, so this is the default device group that Palo Alto already has. You can use this also as a global device group, but again, I'm creating it under global device group. So just before I did that, it's going to show me which device group I should use it as a parent. So let's say when I'm creating a global device group, I've been given an option to choose something as a parent. So something should be a parent for something. Shared is a parent for everything, and we are going to create a global DG, and that should be under shared. So that's a hierarchy. So if you see the hierarchy here, shared is under global, right? And after global, I told you we'll create some region-based device group. So I'll create region A. Click OK, and you see it comes under this one because the parent it takes by default is global DG, right? So again, when I'm going to create a region B device group,
where are you clicking to open this tab of creating a device?
We have something called add here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when I go in to create region B, may know which would be the parent DG. It's by default choosing region A, but do you think region A would be a parent? Because if anything common for all the regions has to be configured, we are supposed to configure it on global DG, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to use the same global device group as a parent for this one also. So that's how it goes down as a hierarchy. Let's say this is device group global, and region A and region B are configured. And when I'm configuring another one, let's say firewall region A, firewall 1 region A, and I will use region A as parent here, because under for region A there is a firewall, and I'm configuring a device group for that, right?
Yes.
So this comes under region A. So for whatever config change I make in here, it affects region A and region B, which means it affects the firewalls under region A as well, or device groups under region A as well. So I'm again going to configure firewall B region B, and it's again going to be under region B. You see, as soon as I configured a global DG, there was some change on the GUI. You saw policies and objects popping out here. So once you configure one single device group, you will see policies and objects on here. So as you keep on configuring, there will be something called templates that you do. Once you configure a template, you will see devices and a network tab also popping up. So I'll talk about how do you commit a config on Panorama. It's a little different than what you do on the firewall. In firewall, is you're just making changes on the firewall and committing it on the firewall itself. So you just have an option to commit. That's all. On Panorama itself is a device. It manages the config of all 20 or 10 firewalls we have added to the Panorama device. So when you're committing to Panorama, it saves the changes to Panorama only. It's not going to affect any firewall, right? When you push it to devices, you are making sure the configs are pushed to specific devices you want it to be pushed. Let's say you are making changes only on, you're going to firewall one region A device group, which is going to affect only one device group. You're going here and you're doing some changes and you're doing a commit to Panorama, and then once commit is complete, you're going to push it. You will be pushing it only onto this firewall. That's how push works. If you want to do both at the same time, you do commit and push. You will be shown on what all you have. What is the commit scope with respect to Panorama? On Panorama, you have done all these changes. And push scope will be you have to go to edit selections and select the firewall you wanted to push to. Since right now we don't have any firewalls added, we'll not be able to push it to any devices. I'll just commit. I'm just locally committing onto the device alone, right?
So when you do
yeah,
when you do commit and push, it commits and pushes to all of those firewalls.
You have to select. That's what I told you. Like here,
okay, actually, the screen toggled so fast that I could barely see.
Okay. I'll just try creating one more. Something like firewall B under region B, and click OK. I'll get an option to commit here. So when you're doing, so this is something which you can do either commit first and then push to devices, or commit and push together. Both are the same. So you do a commit, once the commit is complete, you push it to devices, or you do commit and push. When you do commit and push, you will see the changes that you have made under commit scope.
Okay.
You will see push scope where you can edit and you can just select the firewalls that will be available here. In production, you might have 20-30 firewalls. So for what firewalls you need the configuration to be pushed, or for what reason, or for which firewall you have made the config, you can just select the checkbox, click OK, and then push the config to the firewall.
And where is the option to edit?
Sorry?
You went to the commit screen, and then where is the option to edit? Okay, edit settings. Okay.
Edit selections.
Okay.
And you will have the firewall shown here, and you will have to deselect all the firewall. By default, everything will be selected. You'll have to deselect all and then choose only the firewall you need. This is for device groups. You see this? This is for device groups. So when you have a template config that you configure, you go to template and choose a specific template, right?
Okay.
So I will just revert the changes. So I'm just using this option here. You see this icon here? Reverting the change.
Okay.
So I just done a change by creating a device group. I don't want to commit it. Before committing, if I want to revert it, I can just revert the change. So quickly we move on to template config.
So say for example, if you have committed, then you can't revert it, is it?
I have not committed. So I just showed you how to commit.
In case.
Yeah, if we commit it, we will not be able to revert it. We have to manually go and delete and then commit again.
Okay.
I say I've created something. I want to revert it, but it can be done only before committing. If I commit the changes, it's again like a reverse engineering. You just go erase the config, what you have done, and commit it again. Save the config again onto the Panorama.
Okay.
Okay. Just create a template again. It's just above the device name. Template, click on add. I'm creating a template global, and I'm creating a template pack, and I'm creating a template for firewall 1, let's say, and I'm creating a template for firewall 2. right? So these are all individual templates. So as I told you, I will be mapping these templates in stack so that I can take precedence of what values I can inherit and what values I can override onto the specific template, a specific firewall template. So you see something called add stack here. You go in here, you say firewall 1 stack. So basically, you are concerned about that specific firewall which you are managing. So for that specific firewall,
Sorry, where is that add stack? Okay, got it.
yeah, it's on the same
Yeah,
same
got
template. The template. So you create a specific stack for firewall 1 and firewall 1 stack, and add that firewall serial number here. So I told you, if you remember, I told you under managed devices summary, you will add the serial number of the device which you are going to add, and add the Panorama's IP address onto the firewall to get the firewall connected here. So once it is connected, you will see the firewall popping up here, and you can just filter them based upon the device groups and stuff. You can just add them, and you can add the template that will you want to take precedence in order. Let's say I'm taking global first. I'm taking APAC next, and I'm taking firewall. So this is the order it's going to look up, and I'm clicking OK. And I'm taking a second. Sorry, so I'm creating a second stack for firewall 2. I'm adding the. I'm supposed to add the firewall here, and I will be adding the global first. So this depends upon your requirement. You can even have firewall 1. Sorry, you can even have the firewall 2 template first, IPAC region template next, and global template next. I mean, as a third option. So it's about how you want the config to get inherited. So it's all about your infrastructure and your own way of doing it. So I'll use APAC next, and I'll use firewall 2 at the last. Click OK, and I'll commit the changes. Right. So I'll just do a simple security policy and a simple change on network and device tab to show you how the inheritance happens. With that, we will wind it up. Just 10 minutes.
What do we usually put in these templates? Like, and every time, like whatever order we have defined in this stack, say for example, in firewall 1 stack, and we have put 3 of those, right?
Yeah.
Global, APAC, and then firewall 1.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, how does it work? It first takes the global. I mean, I kind of didn't get it. I'm just trying to interpret.
Yeah. So basically, it will see if there is a value for that parameter on global first. If it doesn't, it will check.
What is the value like? What do you mean by value here?
I'll tell you. First, we'll look into device groups, how it works in template. So I'm considering address object. I'm just creating an object 1 with some IP. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm creating it in global DG.
Yes.
I'm just committing to Panorama. Okay. So when I create an object in global device group, it may be object, it may be policy or anything, any value under policies in object stack. So any services and create a service object, it applies for everything. So you see a white background behind the object's name, which means it's local to the device group. So global DG is the actual device group which is holding this object. And when you go down to the region A, which is the child of global DG, you again see the object, but it says from global DG, right?
Right.
Which again can be used, but can't be edited under this CG. So if you just try to edit this under region A, you will not be able to, because
Right.
it belongs to global DG and you can't edit it on a different device. Similar to everything. So let's similarly, when you create an object in region A, you will not be able to see that in global DG. You will be able to see that in firewall 1 with this sort of background, and it will say it is from region A DG. Right? Similar to the
It is
policy.
from global DB.
What was the question? Sorry.
No, I was saying that I got it. I mean, I couldn't. Could you please repeat your last sentence?
So what I was trying to say is, whatever is the child of the device group you are
Right. It inherits
the
from the
value
parent.
on,
Right.
Yeah.
I got that.
parent will have the value, and that is the device group you should use for editing that specific object value. The child will have that value, and it can be used, but it cannot be edited, or it can't be
Right.
done. It can be edited or modified or anything, deleted or anything, because it belongs to a different device group, and you just can use them or view them on that specific DG, but you will not be able to edit it. Similarly, if you want to move this object from one device group to another, you have options. Move this device group, this one. It all can be done. For everything you are supposed to commit, you can clone this object, clone this to a different device group. Cloning means you have this object in global and you clone it to a different device group if needed. Right? So that's about device groups in short. There are so much that involves regarding policies and how the rule base is actually read on the firewall's perspective. Let's say you are creating 10 rules here, 10 rules here, and the actual firewall is mapped onto this device group, and all 10, 10, 20, and here you have 50 rules, and on the firewall locally you have 50 rules. How those rules are arranged with respect to the firewall, everything matters with respect to how the rule base is arranged. Because from top to bottom is where firewall actually checks the rule base. So you have to be careful on how you write the rule and which location or which rule number you place the rule onto, so that the rule hits the traffic properly. The traffic hits the rule properly, right? Coming down to device group templates. So you have a stack where global is the actual value that is in precedence. Let's say we have firewall 1 mapped to the device serial number, and you create untrust as a tap interface. I'm just segregating or differentiating them with the interface type, right? And I'm creating APAC. Under APAC, I'm creating untrust zone with layer 2 value. Under global, you see this? So when you are going on to, when you go to APAC template, I have created untrust zone as a layer 2. When you go to firewall 1, I've created untrust zone as tab. When I go to global, I've created untrust zone as layer 3. But what that matters is what is the stack value having? So stack value has global as the priority, APAC as second priority, and firewall template 1 as the third priority. So when I go in here, you see what value I have? The same zone with three different interface types that I've configured, but it actually takes the value of global template. You got the point? Because global template is the precedence. The same value that you configure here with three different type of interfaces. I mean, three different interface types for all these three templates on the different individual template level. But the value that stack is the global template value, because global template is a precedence. When I try to go to global template again, and I will just try to delete this one, which means global template now doesn't have anything called untrust zone. And when I go down to stack again, what it should show? It should show APAC, because untrust zone is now present. It's now present in APAC, and it's now present in firewall 1, not in global. So global is out of the top here. APAC is the precedence value that untrust zone has, so that value will be picked up from APAC template. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a precedence defined in stack, there is no point of defining the same value on all the three, because only the precedence template will be taking into effect. So here, what
if you want to override, what do you do? If you want to override the same template?
That's where I'm coming next. So let's say I have APAC value and the type should be layer 2. So I'm trying to do untrust zone as a layer 2 interface, but my actual firewall will be using it as, let me see what it is. The firewall 1 has it, right?
Yeah.
So firewall 1 is where the actual serial number of the device is mapped. So what I'll do is I'll go to template stack. I click here. I'll override. Or maybe not. I'll click here, go to the stack, click here, override, and I'll be overriding here with the value I want. I'll go down and choose this as layer 3, click OK. And if I see from template override TMP APAC. Got it?
Can you show again, please?
Okay. So I'll just revert my changes. Or maybe I'll just try to override a different value. Firewall, let me try to do the zone. I'll keep this as tap. All right.
What's tap here? Tap is just the mirroring of the interface.
Tap is something in Cisco. We use span ports. You remember, for monitoring a specific interface.
Yeah. So port mirroring, sort of.
Yeah, it's sort of a port mirroring. Yes, it's for monitoring. So we don't
just to tap and see what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So we updated.
What is it that we are creating here? Template. Okay.
No, we are not creating a template. We are creating a value under template to know which value is taking precedence. So I'm creating template on. I'm creating a value zone value of DMZ on firewall 2, and I'm creating a zone value on APAC. and this time it is layer 2, let's say, and going down to global, again DMZ. This time I'll just do layer 3. All right. So when I go to Firewall 2 stack, it says it's taking it from template global because we have a value called DMZ in template global. So when I choose a specific DMZ value, I click on override, and I'm overriding this to, let's say, a layer 2. So from template override, sorry, this has been overridden as layer 2, and it will no more take the value of the global template that we have defined because it's been overridden. You got my point?
Yes.
Override is basically you are overwriting a value that the Palo Alto or Panorama is actually having already. So let's say Panorama or the device is already having a value called A, and you wanted to change it to B for this whole stack. You are overriding it by choosing the object. That's how simple it is.
So what is the purpose that it serves, like this tag thing?
So what purpose it serves? So let's say, as I said, for all offices you have untrust zone, right?
Mhm.
For creating all 20 untrust zone onto 20 firewalls,
Yes.
create one untrust zone in global
Mhm.
and use all the stacks with a global template and inherit that untrust zone from there. You don't have to create an untrust zone. So this is just a simple example. Let's say under network, you have something called DHCP, and you are doing a DHCP relay to one specific server centralized. Let's say there is a server in Europe where APAC and Europe both are actually accessing that server for DHCP packets or DHCP IP addresses. So the relay that you configure here, if you do it in global and you use all the stacks with global template, you can take that value and push it to all the firewalls at once, so that you don't have to configure this relay on all 20 or 25 firewalls you're managing. I hope I'm clear.
Could you please repeat?
Okay, let me get you a diagram if you.
See, the other thing is like your voice is bit audio is not that clear. Sometimes it's breaking.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, actually it is happening.
I'm not sure. I think I have better bandwidth, but maybe my speaker. Sorry about that. But do you have anything other than that regarding the topics you can ask me? Regarding audio, I didn't notice. I'm sorry. So let's say you have 3 firewalls. Then you're always welcome to stop me if you are not hearing back anything. I can repeat it. But yeah, that's about it. So let's say we have, for example, 3 firewalls. All these 3 firewalls, you consider any service. Let's say DNS. So for DNS to happen for any intranet domain, all these 3 firewalls or all the users behind these 3 firewalls will have to reach this DNS. Let's imagine these are internal DNS, right? So let's say firewall is proxying it. You are not configuring a direct DNS IP address onto the user's machine through group policy or something. Firewall is proxying it. Let's say you go in here, you configure the DNS IP address here and proxy the firewall, imagining firewall is sending the request to the device. Let's say DNS proxy is happening here. All the firewalls, all 20 or 25 firewalls will have to reach this DNS server which means DNS proxy config should be there on all 20 firewalls. So what you do is you ask for a reason why we configure a template here. So the reason being, you create a global template and use the global template on all the firewalls template stacks, and use that specific global template value to get pushed to the firewall when you push the config to the firewall. So which means when you create this DNS proxy value of this DNS server IP address on global template, and you see I have created 2 stacks considering 2 firewalls, imagining 2 firewalls are there. Let's say we have 20 firewalls, we create 20 stacks, and all the firewalls are in APAC region, and you create one APAC template and one global template and one firewall template. So when you create a global template value for DNS proxy and use it in this stack, the global template value is going to get precedence, and the value will be pushed when you push the config onto all the firewalls. In this way, you save time to configure 20 firewalls with DNS proxy. Similar to, let's say, anything that is centralized on your infrastructure. Let's say SNMP. Let's say you have some profiles. This is a great example. Let's say all your profile that you have configured under device tab. If you go, you have several profiles, server profiles here, radius, LDAP, and you also have certificates. If your firewall is using a centralized certificate server that you are managing, that's again going to be coming under DG Global, and that will be stacked with DG Global taking precedence. The DG Global value will be used for all the firewalls. So in this way, for let's say you have 10 centralized services, DNS, DHCP, TechAx, Radius, certificates, syslog, and all other stuffs. All those 10 services, you just configure once in this Panorama and push it to global on the global template and push it to the firewall. So you are saving time to configure almost 20 into 10, 200 times of configuration is done in minutes, instead of doing it on all 20 firewalls for 20 different services. That's how simple that firewall gets. Panorama gets you to the infrastructure deployment. Otherwise, if you initially someone asked me for one firewall, if I have to use Panorama, that's meaningless, because Panorama is basically for managing multiple firewalls. When config management is getting hectic as the network grows. So in case of 1 or 2 firewalls, it's very easily manageable by configuring it on 2 different firewalls or at 2 different times. You can easily manage the configuration. If it's going more than like 6 to 7 firewalls or 10 firewalls or 10 locations where 10 firewalls are there, it's better to buy a Panorama with a license.
Can you duplicate the stacks across templates or template duplication? Is it possible? Because this is also a manual work, right? When you create, when you have like 10.
Yeah, that's again a one-time job. I think we can do that. Let me. So you wanted to know if you can clone a template stack that you can.
Yeah, cloning basically. Yeah, okay. Is it possible cloning?
I think yeah, you have an option there. So you just select this, clone this, fail to clone. Okay, maybe you can clone only the templates that is present here. Top level object.
No, I think you selected 2 of them. So just deselect one and try the other one.
Basically, it should allow us to clone, but for some reason it is not. It's giving me this fail.
It says cloning allowed only for the top level object. So firewall 2 stack is not a top level object, it seems. So temporary global, yeah, try the one.
Yeah, maybe I can clone only this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's again going to be a one-time job that you do. So considering how much of config overload you're saving, this is actually nothing to configure templates for each firewall. In fact, cloning will again give you confusion, because if you're allowed to clone a stack, you will again have to go ahead and remove the firewall template of the clone.
Yeah, that will be less minimal work, right? Like if you have to, instead of creating 3, you're creating just 1 there.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that's why like cloning will be handy in this case.
Maybe this one is not supporting that.
Okay.
It stopped sharing. Okay. So I think that's something that I wanted to share today. I hope you liked it. I think you are already in touch with the backend team for the regular classes that's going to commence next week or probably the week after. I will let you contact the backend team regarding the other management stuffs and payment stuff that you wanted to discuss. If you have any questions regarding regarding today's session, you can ask me. I'll keep the session open for another 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, so the Panorama practicals will also be there, covered in the part of the training.
Yeah, it will be. It will be, obviously, it will be covered.
So do you also cover the Prisma stuff, which is the 𝒂𝒐 type of solution, cloud secure
Prisma we don't
solution?
cover. Prisma is not a part of PCNSE. So Prisma is again a different set of certification that PALOALTO offers.
Oh, okay. I thought it's a part of PCNSE.
No, PCNSE, it's going to cover only the firewall management and administrative section. How you administer a firewall. It's for engineer level. So you have specific certification for troubleshooting and a specific certification for Cortex. So
then what's the difference between A and E? Because A also administrating.
This is Palo Alto. It's like CCNA and CCNP. It's basically doesn't cover Panorama in PCNSA. PCNSE covers basics of Panorama and how to administer a Panorama. And Panorama itself is a separate certification, by the way. For Panorama, you have a separate certification code where you have to prepare separately. It has a separate syllabus. So PCNSE basically allows you to know how a firewall can be administered and how a Panorama can be integrated to the firewall and how it can be managed.
And there's not a prerequisite that you should have PCNSE for PCNSE, right?
I didn't get your question.
Sorry, it's not a prerequisite that you should have PCNSE.
No, it's not a prerequisite. I completed my when I completed my PCNSE, I have not written PCNSA, I believe. Yeah, NSE can be written directly.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So do you provide dumps or something? Because I also intend to write
from our management side, we don't promise that. The only thing we do is we take care of the syllabus that we cover, and lab part can be taken care by the backend team. Dumps we actually won't be encouraging, as well as we will not be.
But do you at least provide a guidance like how to clear the test, because we don't have much experience in some of the Cisco certifications? It is important that you also go through those dumps and stuff, but do you provide any pointers? I think.
Yeah, that's true. That can be done. At the end of the day, topics are covered. It's about going through the Palo Alto documentation administrator guide, where each and every topic that I cover will be having a detailed overview of theory on it. Since this is going to be a multiple choice question exam, you will have to be reading out the administrative guide so that you get most out of it.
So does it have any lab things in the exam test, or is it just multiple?
Exam doesn't cover any labs. You will just have, I believe, 60 to 75 questions MCQ, and out of which I think 80 is the pass mark, I believe. I'm not sure about how much exactly it is. I can let you know.
Yeah, okay. And in this training, you said 40 to 50 or 60 sessions. So we'll be doing some extensive lab stuff as well, because that's more important, I believe, than the practical.
Yes, as I said, as I cover a specific topic, I will plan a lab which will be lasting for 20 to 25 minutes, and theory will be lasting for 30 to 35 minutes. So as a whole, in addition, we will be covering it for 1 hour. So one topic with a lab, supporting lab for the topic is the plan. With that,
So
I believe we can cover it up within 45
would you
days.
provide, yeah, so thanks. Would you provide some exercises like every week, for a week or something, so we can practice
I
at
can
home?
give you a scenario and ask you, let you build a lab, because we will be providing a backend lab server access to you, and I'll let you know on some scenarios where you can build a lab, and probably if you have any questions, you can contact me offline, or that can be done.
And hopefully we can also install this lab in our laptop.
Local laptop, yes, but preferably the lab server that we provide will have necessary stuff that we need for the lab to work. So that should be sufficient. It's just about connecting to a VPN or taking an RDP of a machine. However, the support team would like you to do, they will be helping you out. If you want to do it in your local machine, maybe I can spend some 30 minutes at the start of the session. I can spend 30 minutes on one of you and try to set up the lab.
Set it up. Yeah, that
just
sounds
for
good.
one, and the rest can follow if it's needed. If the lab that is provided from the backend team should be sufficient. If it's really needed, then because most of us would use 8 GB of RAM, and 16 GB, more than 8 GB is what I think would be necessary, because if you are, let's say, using a Windows server or Windows machine plus a Palo Alto, that itself will take 4 plus 4, 8. So only if we have a 16 GB laptop,
16 GB, obviously,
lab is actually possible, and it will be comfortable as well. So in that way, if you use our lab, it will be easy for you to
And could you share? Could you show me or share the topology that we are going to use in the class?
As I said last time, for each topic.
Sorry, I wasn't there last time, but in general, like we usually have one topology wherein we tweak few changes here and there.
Yeah, that's what I have planned, because having a massive topology, we tend to miss on what exactly we are doing on that specific lab. Let's say if we have some 10 to 15 devices with a massive topology, and the motto of that lab is to configure a DNS proxy. And if we miss something on routing, and we'll end up configuring or troubleshooting that routing part, which will unnecessarily kill our time. So what I have planned is I'll build you a topology for each part of config I'm doing, or each topic that I'm going to cover, which will help you understand the concept better, as well as it will save time for us to configure other stuffs like routing or IP address stuffs and everything. So in that way, having a small topology, according to me, is preferable. But however you want it to be, I can be flexible. But this is how I have planned.
Yeah, maybe like we can have this explanations and everything in the separate topologies, and then in the master topology or something, we can then try out everything together. Maybe at the end of the
right.
I'll plan.
Because we can have a big topology, because it would be better to have multiple firewalls, and understand the communication, how it works in a big scenario, and then we can choose bits and parts of it for
That's true. And as you said, if time permits, we can have a big topology, and we can compile everything, whichever is possible to be added up onto that specific topology. We can do it, and then we can have a bigger lab done at the end. And for the explanation purpose, we'll use a short lab, which will give us more concentration towards what we are actually doing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Fine, then if we are done with the questions, I'll let you wind up and carry on with the work.
Does this course covers both the PCNCA and PCNCE. Yeah.
Sorry, did you ask if this is a PCNSE or A?
Yeah. Is that covers both the topics, course topics?
Yeah. Yes, it covers PCNSE, which is Palo Alto Network Security Engineer, and PCNSA is the it's like CCNA, and then you do CCNP. So this covers from basics up to PCNSE. So you don't have to worry about PCNSE. That will also be covered.
Okay. On the email, the notifications you have received, like there are some additional topics like Python, Ansible, and all, like, so. Those are included.
Yeah. So we have a plan to integrate Palo Alto to API calls and show you how do we automate Palo Alto operation or Palo Alto configurations. So that will be dealt with by us at the end of the course, where we complete the actual PCNSE. So that's something additional that you get to this course, which most of the competitors won't provide. So we are actually planning, because everywhere we go, we are now expected to know something related to automation for any device or any networking infrastructure we manage. So since this is going to be a Palo Alto specific batch, we thought we'll do some automation stuff regarding Palo Alto management, and we'll let you start your career ahead towards that also.
Okay, sure, thanks.
Yeah, that will also be a part of this course, which will be at the final 4 to 5 days of the classes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Ajay, one last
Everyone.
question.
See you at, yeah, you have any further questions?
Yeah, so is there any training going on for the Prisma access?
You can contact the backend team for it. I mean, I'll not be the person if at all it is happening. You can contact the person who is in touch with you for lab and other stuffs. Probably they will be able to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then I'll expect you all in the actual session that's going to happen next week or week after. Have a good day and stay safe then. Thank you.